I'm Amber Mitchell, 28 years old, and I finally bought my dream home after years of saving every penny. I was so excited to host my first housewarming party that I invested $4,000 to make it perfect. But I never imagined my own mother would hijack my special day and transform it into a baby shower for my sister Caitlin. I never thought my own mother would steal my moment so completely. Before I get into this nightmare, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more real-life family drama that might make yours seem normal. For 7 long years, I worked 2 jobs to save enough money for a down payment on a house. During weekdays, I worked as an administrative assistant at a law firm, and on weekends, I picked up shifts as a barista at a local coffee shop. My social life was practically non-existent, but I had a goal. While my friends were spending their money on vacations and nights out, I was putting every extra dollar into my savings account. I lived in a tiny studio apartment with barely enough room for a bed and a small desk. The walls were paper-thin, and I could hear my neighbors' conversations through them. But I endured it all because I had a dream. When I finally had enough for a down payment, I spent months searching for the perfect house. I wanted something with character, not one of those cookie-cutter suburban homes. After looking at countless properties, I found it a beautiful craftsman-style house with a wraparound porch, hardwood floors, and built-in bookshelves. The moment I walked through the front door, I knew it was mine. The house needed some work, but it had good bones, as they say. The previous owners had maintained the original details, like the crown molding and the stained glass window in the stairwell. It was exactly what I had been saving for all those years. My relationship with my family has always been complicated, especially with my mother Teresa and sister Caitlin. Growing up, it seemed like Caitlin could do no wrong in our mother's eyes. She was the pretty one, the social butterfly, the one who brought home straight A's without even trying. I, on the other hand, was quiet and studious, always working twice as hard for half the recognition. When Caitlin was accepted to an Ivy League college, my parents threw her a massive party with all our relatives and friends. When I graduated with honors from a state university, I got a dinner at Olive Garden with just my parents and sister. When Caitlin got engaged to Brandon, a successful surgeon she met during her residency, my mother spent months planning their engagement party. When I got a promotion at work, my mother said, "That's nice, dear," and immediately changed the subject to Caitlin's wedding plans. Don't get me wrong, I love my sister. Caitlin isn't malicious, she's just always been comfortable in the spotlight my mother places her in. And now, at 32, she was pregnant with her first child, which meant my mother had a new reason to fawn over her. So when I finally closed on my house, I was thrilled to have something special to celebrate that was just for me. For once, I wanted the attention to be on my achievement. I wanted my family and friends to see what I had accomplished through years of hard work and sacrifice. I decided to throw a housewarming party that would be memorable. I spent weeks planning every detail. I hired a catering company for $1,800 to provide an assortment of appetizers, a main course of salmon and roast beef, and a dessert table. I allocated $800 for drinks, including a selection of wines, craft beers, and ingredients for signature cocktails. I spent $600 on professional cleaning before and after the event. The remaining $800 went toward decorations, including fresh flowers, string lights for the backyard, and new throw pillows and art pieces to spruce up the interior. I invited 50 guests, including family members, friends from both jobs, and a few neighbors I had already connected with. I sent out beautiful invitations with a photo of the house and the words, "Amber's New Beginning," in elegant script. I created a playlist of my favorite songs and planned a house tour that would highlight all the features I loved. At first, my mother seemed supportive. She offered to help with small tasks, like picking up the floral arrangements, or bringing some extra serving dishes. I was grateful for her involvement and thought maybe, just maybe, she was finally going to celebrate something that was important to me. "Your father and I are so proud of you," she said during one of our planning conversations. "Not many young people can buy a house on their own these days." Her words meant everything to me. For once, I felt like I had done something that impressed her. Then came the first red flag. About 2 weeks before the party, my mother called to ask if I would mind if she invited some additional family members. "Who did you have in mind?" I asked. "Just Aunt Linda and Uncle Dave, and maybe Cousin Megan and her husband. They're all so excited about Caitlin's baby news, and it would be nice for them to see your house too." I hesitated. Aunt Linda and Uncle Dave were much closer to Caitlin than to me. They rarely asked about my life at family gatherings. But I wanted to be accommodating, and it was my chance to show them what I had achieved. "Sure, Mom," I said. "The more, the merrier." Little did I know that this small concession would open the door to what was coming. As the party date approached, I took 3 days off work to prepare the house. I wanted everything to be perfect. The first day, I deep-cleaned areas the professional cleaners might miss, like inside cabinets and the utility closet. I know it seems excessive, but I wanted to be ready for guests who might peek inside during the house tour. The second day, I went shopping for party supplies. I visited 5 different stores to find the perfect decorations that would complement my home's aesthetic without overwhelming it. I chose cream-colored tablecloths, gold and navy blue accents, and simple eucalyptus garlands for the mantel and stair railing. I bought new guest towels for the bathrooms and scented candles for ambience. My friend Rachel came with me on the shopping trip, and was amazed by my attention to detail. "You're really going all out for this," she remarked as I deliberated between 2 nearly identical shades of blue napkins. "This is the first time I'm hosting anything in my own home," I explained. "I want it to be special." "It will be," Rachel assured me. "Everyone's going to love it." That evening, I called my mother to confirm she would be coming over the next day to help with the final preparations. "Of course, sweetie," she said. "I have a few things I want to bring over too." "What things?" I asked, immediately wary. "Just some extra serving platters." "Oh, and I thought we could set up a small table for cards and gifts." "I didn't ask for gifts," I said. "It's just a housewarming. People will bring them anyway," my mother insisted. "It's better to be prepared." She wasn't wrong about that, so I agreed. But something in her tone made me uneasy. The next day, my mother arrived with Dad in tow, their SUV packed with more than just serving platters. As they started unloading, I noticed my mother had brought several vases filled with pink and blue flowers. "Mom, these don't match the color scheme I chose," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "They're just flowers, Amber. They'll brighten up the place." As she continued unpacking, I spotted a small banner tucked between 2 serving dishes. I pulled it out and unfolded it to reveal the words, "Oh baby," in glittery pink and blue letters. "What is this?" I asked, my stomach dropping. My mother glanced over and waved dismissively. "Just a little decoration for Caitlin. You know everyone's excited about the baby." "Mom, this is my housewarming party." "And it still will be," she assured me. "But wouldn't it be nice to acknowledge your sister's news too? Many of the family members are coming to see both of you." I took a deep breath. I'd prefer to keep the focus on the house this time. Caitlin will have her baby shower in a few months, right? "It's just a few items, Amber. Don't be selfish. Your sister is giving us a grandchild." There it was, the familiar guilt trip. The implication that my achievement paled in comparison to Caitlin's pregnancy. I felt my chest tighten, but decided to stand my ground. I'm not being selfish, Mom. I've worked really hard for this house, and I want to celebrate that. Please respect that. She pressed her lips together in that way she does when she's displeased but won't say it outright. Fine. Whatever you want. It's your party. My father, ever the peacekeeper, quickly changed the subject, asking me to show him the backyard. As we walked outside, he squeezed my shoulder. The house looks great, kiddo. You should be proud. His simple acknowledgement brought tears to my eyes, but I blinked them away. I didn't want my mother to see me upset and think I was being overly emotional. Later, as my parents were leaving, I spotted something in the back of their SUV, a box from Baby Boutique, an upscale children's store in town. I pretended not to see it and waved goodbye, hoping my mother had gotten the message. That night, I struggled to fall asleep. Instead of feeling excited about the party, I felt anxious. A nagging voice in my head warned me that my mother wouldn't let this go easily. But I pushed the thought away. Surely, she wouldn't actually try to hijack my housewarming party. Would she? As I finally drifted off to sleep, I tried to focus on the positive. Tomorrow, my house would be filled with people I cared about, celebrating this huge milestone in my life. It would be perfect, just as I had planned. But deep down, I knew something was brewing. I just didn't realize yet how bad it would get. I woke up on the morning of the party, with a mixture of excitement and lingering anxiety. The sun was streaming through my bedroom window, casting a warm glow on the hardwood floors. For a moment, I just lay there, taking it all in. This was my house. My sanctuary. My achievement. I got up and made myself a cup of coffee, enjoying the quiet before the storm of activity that would soon begin. The catering company would arrive at 2 o'clock to set up, and guests were expected at 4. I had about 6 hours to handle the final details. First, I set up the speaker system and tested my carefully curated playlist. Then I arranged the fresh flowers I'd picked up yesterday into vases and placed them strategically around the house. I set out the guest book I'd bought, where people could leave messages and advice for my new home. Everything was coming together beautifully. At noon, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find my mother and Caitlin standing there, arms loaded with bags and boxes. "We're here to help," Caitlin announced cheerfully. At 7 months pregnant, she was glowing in a floral maternity dress that accentuated her baby bump. "Thanks," I said, stepping aside to let them in. "But I've got most things under control. The caterers will be here in a couple of hours." "Nonsense," my mother said, brushing past me. "There's always more to do. Caitlin can't be on her feet too much in her condition, but she wanted to come early to spend time with you." That seemed innocent enough, and I was touched that Caitlin had made the effort. But as they began unpacking their bags, my heart sank. Baby shower decorations. Lots of them. Tiny onuses strung together as banners. Storks carrying bundles. Blue and pink balloons. "Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "We talked about this yesterday. This is a housewarming party." "And it still is," my mother replied, not even looking up as she continued unpacking. "But we can celebrate both things. It's more efficient this way, since the family is already gathered." I looked at Caitlin, hoping for some support, but she was busily arranging a display of sonogram photos on my coffee table. "Isn't this cute?" she asked, holding up a little frame. "It's the first clear picture of the baby's face." I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone. "Caitlin, did Mom tell you she was planning to turn my housewarming into a baby shower?" Caitlin looked confused. "Not exactly. She just said it would be nice to share some of the baby news since everyone would be here. Is that a problem? Before I could answer, the doorbell rang again. I opened it to find my mother's friends, Barbara and Judith, standing there with gift bags adorned with baby storks and rattles. "We're a bit early," Barbara said, "but Teresa said you could use help setting up the baby shower." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. "The baby shower?" I repeated. "Yes, for Caitlin," Judith replied, looking at me strangely. "Teresa said you were combining it with your housewarming. Such a lovely idea to share the spotlight." I stepped back wordlessly and let them in, watching in horror as they cooed over Caitlin and added their gifts to a pile that was now forming in my living room. When had this pile started? How many people had my mother told about this combined celebration? I pulled my mother into the kitchen, closing the door behind us. "Mom, what have you done?" I demanded, my voice shaking. "I don't know why you're getting so upset," she said, arranging cupcakes topped with baby booties on a tray. "It's just a few decorations and gifts. Your house still looks lovely." "This isn't about decorations," I said. "It's about the fact that you've completely taken over my event without my permission. You told people this was a baby shower." "Well, it's both," she insisted. "And honestly, Amber, everyone is much more excited about the baby than a house. It's just bricks and wood. A new life is joining our family." Her words cut deep. Just bricks and wood. This house represented years of sacrifice and hard work. It was my dream, my achievement. And in my mother's eyes, it was nothing compared to Caitlin's pregnancy. Before I could respond, the catering company arrived, and I had to push down my emotions to direct them. As they set up in the dining room, I tried to remove some of the baby decorations, only to find more appearing as additional early guests arrived, all friends and relatives of my mother, all bearing baby gifts. By 3:30, my house had been transformed. The elegant, sophisticated housewarming I had planned was now buried under an avalanche of pastel baby paraphernalia. A diaper cake sat on my mantel, obscuring the vintage mirror I'd splurged on. The guest book was now next to a baby name suggestion jar. Even my signature cocktails had been renamed with baby-themed puns, Mimosa and Baby Bellini. At 4 o'clock, as guests began arriving in earnest, I stood by the door, forcing a smile as I greeted them. Some looked confused, especially my work friends, who had no idea this was supposedly a combined event. Others immediately gravitated toward Caitlin, who was holding court in my living room, surrounded by admirers touching her belly and asking about due dates and nursery plans. Rachel arrived and gave me a concerned look. "What's going on?" she whispered. "I thought this was your housewarming." "So did I replied bitterly. As more guests filled the house, my mother clinked a glass to get everyone's attention. My stomach dropped as she stood in the center of my living room, beaming. "Thank you all for coming to this special dual celebration," she announced. "We're so proud of Amber for buying this lovely home, and we're thrilled to use this opportunity to celebrate Caitlin and Brandon's upcoming addition to our family. If everyone could gather in the living room, Caitlin will be opening baby gifts in about 30 minutes. Several guests looked in my direction, clearly confused by this announcement. I saw my boss from the law firm frown and whisper something to his wife. My neighbors exchanged glances. My father stood in the corner, looking uncomfortable, but saying nothing, as usual. I tried to salvage what I could of my original plan, offering to give people tours of the house, but each attempt was interrupted. "Oh, we'll see the house later," my Aunt Linda said. "I don't want to miss Caitlin opening my gift." As I watched my carefully planned party disintegrate before my eyes, I felt myself becoming invisible in my own home. The home I had worked so hard for. The home that was supposed to be the center of celebration today. The final straw came when I overheard my mother talking to one of her friends in the hallway. The house is nice, but Caitlin's baby is what really matters to our family right now, she said in a stage whisper. Amber will understand someday, if she ever settles down and has children of her own. This is just a house, but that baby is our future. In that moment, something inside me broke. I slipped away from the crowd and locked myself in my bedroom, tears streaming down my face. I could hear the party continuing without me, the excited exclamations as Caitlin opened gift after gift. No one had even noticed I was gone. I sat on the edge of my bed, my hands trembling as I tried to wipe away my tears. Through the closed door, I could hear the sounds of laughter and conversation floating up from downstairs. My party, my celebration, was continuing without me, completely transformed into something I hadn't wanted or planned. The worst part wasn't even the decorations, or the gifts, or the announcements. It was the realization that this pattern had existed my entire life. Every achievement of mine had been minimized, overshadowed, or redirected to focus on Caitlin. My graduation, my promotions, and now my home, none of these milestones were deemed worthy of their own spotlight in my family's eyes. I thought about the $4,000 I had spent, money I had carefully saved from my budget after making the down payment on the house. I thought about the hours of planning, the careful selection of every detail. All of it, hijacked with a smile and a dismissive, "Don't be selfish." A soft knock on the door interrupted my thoughts. "Amber. Are you in there?" It was Rachel. I opened the door to find my friend standing there with a concerned expression. "What happened? 1 minute you were giving the Thompsons a tour of the kitchen, and the next you disappeared." "My mother happened," I said, my voice breaking. "Did you hear what she's been saying? That this is just a house, but Caitlin's baby is what really matters." Rachel stepped inside and closed the door behind her. "I did, and it's complete bullshit. You worked your ass off for this place. It's gorgeous, and it deserves to be celebrated." "Nobody down there cares," I said, gesturing vaguely toward the party below. "They're all gathered around Caitlin, oohing and ahhing over onuses and baby booties." "Not everyone," Rachel corrected me. "Your work friends are confused as hell. Mark asked me if you knew about the baby shower aspect beforehand, and when I told him no, he was pretty appalled. And your neighbors, the Johnsons. They came specifically to see your house. They are currently hiding in your kitchen with a bottle of wine, avoiding the baby shower chaos." Despite everything, that made me laugh a little. At least someone's enjoying the expensive wine I bought. Rachel sat next to me on the bed. "So what are you going to do? Hide up here until everyone leaves?" I thought about it for a moment. That would certainly be the easiest option. Avoid the conflict, let my mother have her way, as I had done countless times before. But something felt different this time. This was my house. My space. My achievement. And I had let it be taken away from me without a fight. "No," I said finally, standing up. "I'm not going to hide. This is my house, and this was supposed to be my celebration." "That's the spirit," Rachel said, squeezing my hand. "What's the plan?" "I'm not sure yet," I admitted. "But I'm done being invisible." I splashed some cold water on my face in the ensuite bathroom, reapplied my lipstick, and straightened my dress. Then I headed downstairs with Rachel by my side. The scene in my living room was exactly as I had feared. The furniture had been rearranged to create a kind of throne for Caitlin, who sat in my reading chair, the one I had carefully selected for quiet evenings, with a book surrounded by opened and unopened baby gifts. My mother stood beside her, directing the proceedings like a conductor with an orchestra. This one is from Aunt Linda and Uncle Dave, she announced, handing Caitlin a large box wrapped in baby blue paper. I watched as my sister tore into the paper, revealing an expensive-looking baby swing. "Oh my goodness, it's the one I wanted," she exclaimed, as my mother clapped her hands in delight. Several of my friends caught my eye, giving me sympathetic looks. My boss and his wife had retreated to a corner, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. My father stood by the fireplace, nursing a scotch, and looking like he wished he could disappear. As Caitlin reached for another gift, I stepped forward into the center of the room. My heart was pounding, but I felt strangely calm. "Excuse me," I said, my voice louder than I had intended. The room gradually fell silent as people turned to look at me. "I want to thank you all for coming today," I continued, trying to keep my voice steady. "As you know, this was supposed to be a housewarming party to celebrate my new home. I spent years saving for this place, working 2 jobs and making countless sacrifices. This house represents the biggest achievement of my life so far, and I was excited to share it with all of you." I paused, looking directly at my mother, whose expression had hardened. "I'm thrilled for my sister and her growing family," I said, turning to Caitlin, whose face had flushed red. "And I look forward to celebrating the baby at the shower I know Mom is planning for next month at her house. But today was meant to celebrate this milestone in my life. This house. My achievement." The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. My mother stepped forward, her eyes flashing with anger. "Amber, this is not the time or place for this," she hissed. "You're embarrassing yourself and your sister." "No, Mom," I replied calmly. "You've embarrassed me by hijacking my celebration and turning it into something else entirely without my permission. You've made it clear that my achievements will always be secondary to Caitlin's in your eyes." Caitlin stood up awkwardly, her hand on her belly. "Amber, I had no idea you felt this way. Mom told me you were happy to share the day." I looked at my sister, seeing genuine confusion in her eyes. "Did she actually ask me if I wanted to host your baby shower today?" Caitlin glanced at our mother, then back at me. "She said you thought it would be more convenient since the family would all be here anyway." I laughed bitterly. "Convenient. Right?" I turned back to the uncomfortable guests. "I apologize for this family drama playing out in front of you all. If anyone would like to see the house, the actual reason for this gathering, I'll be giving tours starting in 5 minutes. And there's plenty of food and drink in the dining room that I hope you'll enjoy." With that, I walked into the kitchen, my legs shaking but my head held high. Rachel followed me, along with a few of my closest friends. My mother wasn't far behind. "How dare you make a scene like that," she said as soon as the kitchen door closed behind her. "After all we've done for you." "What exactly have you done for me, Mom?" I asked, suddenly tired of tiptoeing around the truth. "When have you ever celebrated my achievements without finding a way to redirect attention to Caitlin?" "That's not fair," she sputtered. "We've always supported you." "No, you've always tolerated me," I corrected her. "There's a difference. And today proves it. You couldn't even let me have one day that was just about my accomplishment. You had to make it about Caitlin again. You always make everything about you," my mother snapped. "Caitlin is giving us a grandchild. That's a bit more significant than buying a house, don't you think?" There it was, the unvarnished truth of how she saw things. My achievements would never measure up to Caitlin's in her eyes. No matter what I accomplished, it would always be secondary. "I think," I said slowly, my voice shaking with emotion, "that I would like you and Caitlin to leave now." My mother's jaw dropped. "What?" "You heard me. This is my house. I paid for it. I decide who stays and who goes. And right now, I want you to leave. You can't be serious, she said, looking around as if expecting someone to back her up. But my friends stood silently behind me, a united front. I've never been more serious in my life, I replied. Please take all the baby shower decorations and gifts with you. I'll let Caitlin know she can open the rest at her actual shower next month. My mother's face went through a series of expressions: shock, anger, hurt, and finally, a cold mask of dignity. Fine, she said. If that's how you want to handle this. Caitlin will be devastated. I think Caitlin will understand, I said. But even if she doesn't, this is my boundary, and I'm asking you to respect it. As my mother stormed out of the kitchen, I leaned against the counter, suddenly exhausted, but also feeling strangely liberated. For the first time in my life, I had stood up to her. I had reclaimed my space, my celebration, and my achievement. Whatever happened next, I knew things would never be quite the same in our family. And maybe that wasn't such a bad thing after all. After my mother left the kitchen, I took a moment to compose myself. My friends surrounded me, offering words of support and encouragement. I can't believe you just did that, Rachel said, a mix of awe and concern in her voice. Are you okay? I think so, I replied, surprised to find that I actually meant it. Despite the confrontation and the stress, I felt lighter somehow, as if I'd put down a heavy burden I'd been carrying for years. I straightened my shoulders and turned to my friends. I should go back out there. There are still guests who came to see the house. We're right behind you, Rachel assured me. When I returned to the living room, I found a scene of awkward confusion. My mother was whispering furiously to Caitlin, who looked torn between embarrassment and concern. Some guests were pretending not to notice the family drama unfolding, while others were openly watching, curious to see what would happen next. I approached my sister, who looked up at me with wide eyes. Amber, Mom says you want us to leave, she said, one hand protectively cradling her baby bump. Is that true? I nodded, trying to keep my voice gentle but firm. Yes, Caitlin. I think it's for the best. This was supposed to be my housewarming, and it's turned into something else entirely. I had no idea you didn't want this, she said, and I believed her. Caitlin had always been oblivious to the family dynamics that elevated her and diminished me. It wasn't malicious on her part, she simply accepted the attention our mother lavished on her as normal. I know, I said. But now you do. And I'd appreciate it if you could respect my wishes and take the baby shower elsewhere. We can celebrate your baby next month as planned. My mother interrupted before Caitlin could respond. This is ridiculous, Amber. You're acting like a child. Everyone is already here. The gifts are already opened. What's done is done. I turned to face her, acutely aware of the audience watching our confrontation. No, Mom. What's done is not done. This is my house, and I get to decide what kind of events are held here. You didn't ask my permission to turn my housewarming into Caitlin's baby shower. You assumed I would go along with it, as I always have. But not this time. My voice was steady, despite the emotions churning inside me. I wasn't yelling or crying, which seemed to surprise my mother. She was used to my emotional reactions, which she could then dismiss as overdramatic or sensitive. My calm assertion of boundaries was new territory for both of us. Fine, she said finally, her lips pressed into a thin line. If that's how you want to be. Caitlin, let's gather your gifts. Apparently, we're not welcome here. I noticed some of my relatives exchanging uncomfortable glances. Aunt Linda whispered something to Uncle Dave, who shook his head. My cousin Megan looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. The tension in the room was palpable. As my mother and sister began collecting the baby gifts, several guests approached me quietly. "Should we leave too?" my neighbor Mrs. Johnson asked hesitantly. "Not at all," I assured her. "The housewarming is still happening. I'd love to show you around if you're interested." Gradually, the room separated into two groups, those helping my mother and sister pack up the baby shower items, and those who stayed with me, interested in seeing the house as originally planned. My father approached me as my mother supervised the loading of gifts into their car. "That was quite a scene," he said, his expression unreadable. "I'm not sorry," I told him, bracing for his disapproval. To my surprise, he nodded. "You shouldn't be. It's about time someone stood up to your mother when she goes too far. I just wish it hadn't happened like this." "So do I admitted. But it was never going to be easy." He squeezed my shoulder awkwardly. "It's a beautiful house, Amber. You should be proud." "Are you leaving with them?" I asked. He glanced toward the door, where my mother was issuing directions to anyone within earshot. "I suppose I should. Someone needs to keep the peace." He hesitated, then added, "For what it's worth, I am proud of you. Both for the house and for standing your ground today." His words meant more to me than I could express. I hugged him briefly, then let him go to join my mother and sister. As they prepared to leave, Caitlin broke away from our mother and came back to me. "I'm sorry, Amber," she said quietly. "I really didn't know this wasn't what you wanted. Mom made it sound like you were happy to share the day." I believed her. Caitlin had never been malicious, just oblivious to the dynamics at play. "It's okay," I told her. "This isn't really about you. It's about boundaries that should have been set a long time ago." She nodded uncertainly. "Still, I feel terrible. Can we talk later? When things have calmed down?" "I'd like that," I said honestly. As they finally left, taking the pastel decorations and baby gifts with them, I felt a wave of mixed emotions wash over me. Relief that I had finally stood up for myself. Sadness that it had come to this. Anxiety about the fallout that was sure to follow. But underneath it all was a sense of pride, not just in my new home, but in myself for protecting it and what it represented. The party continued in a subdued fashion. Many guests had left during the confrontation, clearly uncomfortable with the family drama. But those who remained seemed genuinely interested in seeing the house and celebrating with me. I gave several tours, pointing out the original features I loved and the improvements I planned to make. We ate the food the caterers had prepared and drank the wine I had selected. There was laughter again, and genuine conversations. It wasn't the housewarming I had envisioned, but it was mine. And for the first time in a long time, I felt truly seen by the people around me. The day after the party, I woke up to a house that still bore the remnants of both celebrations. Despite my mother and sister taking most of the baby shower items with them, a few stray balloons remained, and there were still some congratulatory cards for Caitlin mixed in with my housewarming gifts. The sight brought back the emotions of the previous day, but they felt more distant now, less raw. I spent the morning cleaning up, returning furniture to its proper place, and reclaiming my space. As I worked, my phone buzzed constantly with text messages and calls from family members. Some were supportive surprisingly. My cousin Megan sent a thoughtful message saying she understood why I had been upset, and that she thought I had every right to stand up for myself. Others were critical, with Aunt Linda sending a particularly biting text about how I had ruined Caitlin's special moment, and always been jealous of my sister. I decided not to respond to any of them yet. I needed time to process everything that had happened and decide how I wanted to move forward with my family relationships. Around noon, Rachel stopped by with coffee and pastries. "How are you holding up?" she asked as we sat at my kitchen island. Better than I expected, I admitted. It feels like a weight has been lifted. Like I can finally breathe in my own life. Good, she said. Because what your mom did was seriously not okay. And the way she tried to make you feel guilty for standing up for yourself was classic manipulation. I know, I said. I've been thinking about it all morning. This pattern has existed my entire life, but I never had the courage to challenge it before. It took this house, having something that was completely mine, to give me the strength to set boundaries. So what happens now? Have you talked to your mom or sister? I shook my head. Not yet. Mom left a voicemail saying I owe Caitlin an apology for ruining her day, but I deleted it. Caitlin texted asking if we could talk, and I told her I need a few days. That seems reasonable, Rachel said. You don't owe anyone an immediate response after what happened. Later that afternoon, my phone rang with a call from Caitlin. Despite my earlier message about needing time, I decided to answer. Hi, I said cautiously. Hey, she replied, her voice subdued. I know you said you needed a few days, but I wanted to check if you're okay. The question surprised me. In our family, Caitlin was usually the one people checked on, not me. I'm getting there, I answered honestly. Yesterday was a lot. I know, and I'm really sorry, Amber. I had no idea Mom had basically hijacked your party. She told me you were excited to share the celebration. That doesn't surprise me, I said. Mom has always been good at creating her own narrative. There was a pause, and then Caitlin said something that shocked me even more. I've been thinking about it, and I realize this isn't the first time this has happened, is it? Mom has always made my stuff the priority. I nearly dropped the phone. Never, in all our years growing up, had Caitlin acknowledged this dynamic. Yes, I said simply, not trusting myself to say more without my emotions taking over. I'm sorry I never noticed before, she continued. I guess it was easy not to when I was the one benefiting. It wasn't your fault, I said, and I meant it. You were a kid too. We both just played the roles we were assigned. Still, I should have been more aware. And I definitely should have checked with you directly about the baby shower thing instead of just taking Mom's word for it. Her acknowledgement meant more to me than she could know. For the first time, I felt truly seen by my sister. Thank you for saying that, I told her. It means a lot. We talked for nearly an hour, really talked, in a way we never had before. Caitlin shared her anxieties about becoming a mother, and I opened up about how isolated I'd felt in our family. It wasn't a perfect conversation, there were awkward moments and old patterns that crept in, but it was a start. After we hung up, I felt both emotionally drained and strangely hopeful. Maybe some good could come from this mess after all. That evening, I called a therapist whose number Rachel had given me months ago. I had resisted therapy, telling myself my family issues weren't bad enough to warrant professional help. But now I realized that the patterns were deeply ingrained, and I needed support to navigate them in a healthier way. I'd like to schedule an initial consultation, I told the receptionist. I'm working on setting boundaries with my family, and I could use some guidance. The simple act of making that call felt like another step in reclaiming my life and my voice. Over the next few weeks, I maintained limited contact with my mother. She called daily at first, leaving messages that ranged from angry, "I can't believe you're still acting this way," to guilt-inducing, "Your father and I have done everything for you, and this is how you repay us," to falsely conciliatory, "Let's just forget this whole thing happened and move on." I listened to them all, but responded only with brief texts letting her know I needed space. My father called once, awkwardly but sincerely checking on me. "Your mother doesn't understand why you're upset," he said. "But I do. Take the time you need, kiddo. My therapy sessions began, and I found them both challenging and enlightening. My therapist, Dr. Marshall, helped me see how the family dynamics had shaped my self-perception and my tendency to minimize my own needs and achievements. What happened at your housewarming wasn't just about a party, she explained during one session. It was about a lifetime of having your accomplishments overshadowed. Your reaction was the culmination of years of unexpressed hurt and resentment. So I wasn't overreacting? I asked, still uncertain despite everything. Not at all, she assured me. In fact, setting that boundary was a healthy response to an unhealthy situation. The question now is, how do you want to move forward with your family? It was a question I pondered deeply as I continued settling into my new home. I repainted the living room, bought new art for the walls, and gradually transformed the space into a true reflection of myself. Each change felt symbolic, a way of affirming that this was my house, my life, my choice. Caitlin and I continued to talk regularly, our relationship evolving into something more balanced and authentic. She even came over one afternoon, without our mother, and I gave her the house tour I'd originally planned. "This place is so you," she said as we sat on my porch swing afterward. "I can see why you're so proud of it." "Thanks," I said. "That means a lot coming from you." As her due date approached, I made a conscious decision to be involved in my niece or nephew's life, regardless of the state of my relationship with my mother. I bought a beautiful children's book and wrote an inscription inside, "For my niece and nephew, may you always know your worth and find your voice. Love, Aunt Amber." When I gave it to Caitlin at her actual baby shower, held at our parents' house, which I attended briefly, maintaining polite, but distant contact with my mother, she hugged me tightly. "This means everything," she whispered. "I want my child to know their amazing aunt." Slowly, I was finding a new balance, creating boundaries where needed while nurturing the family relationships that were evolving in healthier directions. It wasn't perfect, and there were still difficult days, but for the first time in my life, I felt like I was writing my own story, instead of accepting the role I'd been assigned. And through it all, my house stood as a testament to what I had accomplished and the strength I had found within myself to protect it, not just the physical structure, but what it represented, my independence, my achievement, and my right to celebrate both without apology. 3 weeks after the disastrous housewarming party, I sat in my reading chair by the window, a cup of tea in hand, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. The house was quiet, peaceful in a way that felt both new and deeply familiar, as if this space had been waiting for me all along. My contact with my family had been limited during this time. I'd spoken with Caitlin regularly, building a new kind of relationship based on mutual respect rather than the old patterns we'd grown up with. My father called occasionally, our conversations brief, but warmer than they had been in years. With my mother, however, I maintained firm boundaries, responding to her messages with polite, but brief replies, refusing to be drawn into arguments or guilt trips. Dr. Marshall, my therapist, had helped me understand that this distance wasn't about punishment, but about healing, giving myself the space to process decades of family dynamics and determine what kind of relationship I wanted moving forward. "Boundaries aren't walls," she reminded me during our sessions. "They are fences with gates that you control. You decide when to open them and how much access to allow." In my house, I was reclaiming my space in both literal and figurative ways. I repainted the dining room, replacing the neutral beige the previous owners had chosen with a deep, rich blue that made me smile every time I walked past. I hung art that spoke to me, not expensive pieces, but works that resonated with my soul. I arranged my books on the built-in shelves, creating a physical manifestation of my mind and heart in this space that was truly mine. One Saturday morning, my doorbell rang unexpectedly. When I opened it, I found Caitlin standing there alone. Hey, she said, looking uncharacteristically nervous. Can we talk? I invited her in, noting how she took in the changes I'd made to the house since her last visit. It looks amazing in here, she said, following me to the kitchen, where I made us both tea. Very you. We sat at my kitchen island, cradling our mugs in the momentary, awkward silence that fell between us. I've been doing a lot of thinking, Caitlin finally said. About our family, about Mom, about how things have always been between us. I waited, giving her space to continue. I never realized how much Mom favored me, she admitted. Or maybe I did, on some level, but it was easier not to acknowledge it. When you're the one getting the attention and praise, it's comfortable. You don't question it. I understand, I said, and I did. It wasn't your responsibility to fix the dynamic. We were kids. But we're not kids anymore, she pointed out. And I should have seen what was happening long before now. Especially at your housewarming. The way Mom just took over, assuming you'd be fine with it because. She hesitated. Because my achievements have always been secondary to yours in this family, I finished for her. She nodded, looking down at her tea. Yes. And I'm sorry, Amber. I'm sorry I never stood up for you. I'm sorry I accepted Mom's narrative without question. And I'm sorry it took this blow-up for me to finally see what's been happening all along. Her apology was something I hadn't realized I needed until I heard it. It wasn't about blame. Caitlin had been as much a product of our mother's favoritism as I had been, but about recognition. About being seen. Thank you, I said simply. That means a lot. We talked for hours that day, really talked, peeling back layers of our shared history and examining them with adult eyes. Caitlin shared stories from her perspective, the pressure she'd felt to be perfect, the way our mother had used her as an extension of herself, the expectations that had come with being the favorite. It wasn't all sunshine and roses for me either, she explained. Being the golden child means you can never slip up, never fail. Mom's love always felt conditional on my success. I shared my own experiences, the constant comparison, the feeling of invisibility, the way I'd learned to downplay my achievements, because they would never measure up in our mother's eyes. I used to hate you sometimes, I admitted, the confession both terrifying and liberating. Not because of anything you did, but because of what you represented, everything I could never be in Mom's eyes. I know, Caitlin said softly. I think I always knew, but it was easier to pretend everything was fine. By the time she left that evening, something had shifted between us. The foundation had been laid for a new kind of sisterhood, one based on honesty, understanding, and mutual support rather than competition and resentment. The following week, I decided it was time to have a similar conversation with my mother. I invited her to meet me at a neutral location, a quiet cafe halfway between our homes, rather than allowing her into my space, which still felt sacred and in need of protection. She arrived looking both defensive and uncertain, clearly unsure what to expect from this meeting. Thank you for coming, I began once we were seated with our coffees. Of course, she replied stiffly. Though I don't understand why you've been avoiding me. It's been nearly a month since your incident at the housewarming. I took a deep breath, remembering Dr. Marshall's advice about staying centered in my truth while remaining open to dialogue. I haven't been avoiding you, Mom. I've been taking space to process what happened and what it revealed about our relationship. And what exactly did it reveal? She asked, a hint of sarcasm in her tone. That my achievements have never been as important to you as Caitlin's, I said directly. That you couldn't even let me have one day to celebrate something I worked years for without turning the spotlight to her. That's not fair, my mother protested. I've always supported you. Support isn't the same as celebration, I pointed out. Yes, you helped me move. You bought me dishes when I first got an apartment. But when have you ever been truly excited about my accomplishments? When have you ever made my milestones the center of attention, the way you do with Caitlin? My mother opened her mouth to argue, then closed it again. For perhaps the first time in our relationship, she seemed to be actually considering my words rather than dismissing them. I don't play favorites, she said finally, but her voice lacked conviction. Mom, you turned my housewarming party into Caitlin's baby shower without even asking me. If that's not favoritism, I don't know what is. She was quiet for a long moment, stirring her coffee absently. I didn't think you'd mind, she said eventually. You've never minded before. I've always minded, I corrected her. I just never felt like I had the right to say so. But this is different. This house represents years of hard work and sacrifice. It's the biggest achievement of my life so far, and I needed it to be celebrated for what it is. It's just a house, Amber, she said, but there was less certainty in her voice now. No, Mom. It's not just a house. It's my independence. It's proof that I can build something meaningful on my own. It's the first space that's truly mine, and I need you to respect that. She was quiet again, longer this time. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer. I don't know how to fix this. I don't expect you to fix anything, I told her honestly. I'm not asking for grand gestures or dramatic changes. I'm asking for awareness. For you to see the patterns that have shaped our family and to understand why they've been harmful. And if I can't do that, she asked, a rare vulnerability in her question. Then we'll need to have different boundaries than we've had before, I said. I'm not cutting you out of my life, Mom. But I am protecting myself from patterns that have hurt me for too long. It wasn't a perfect conversation. My mother didn't have a sudden epiphany or break down in tears of remorse. There was no dramatic reconciliation or promise that everything would be different moving forward. But there was a crack in the facade, a small opening where light could begin to enter. It was a start. In the weeks that followed, I continued to establish my new normal. I hosted a small, intimate redo housewarming with just my closest friends Rachel, Mark from work, my neighbors the Johnsons, and a few others who had been supportive through everything. We grilled in the backyard, played board games in the living room, and celebrated my achievement properly, without competition or comparison. Caitlin came for dinner regularly, our new relationship growing stronger with each honest conversation. My father visited once, awkwardly but sincerely admiring the improvements I'd made to the house. Even my mother made small efforts, sending a housewarming card that acknowledged my hard work, asking questions about my renovation plans, without immediately changing the subject to Caitlin's baby nursery. They were small steps, but meaningful ones. Rome wasn't built in a day, and family dynamics don't transform overnight. But change was happening, gradually and genuinely. As I settled more deeply into my home and myself, I realized that the painful confrontation at my housewarming had ultimately been a gift, the catalyst I needed to break free from patterns that had constrained me for too long. In standing up for my space, I had found my voice. In protecting my achievement, I had affirmed my worth. One evening, as I sat on my porch swing watching the neighborhood settle into dusk, I felt a profound sense of peace wash over me. This house was more than just bricks and wood, more than just an investment, or a place to live. It was a symbol of my journey not just to homeownership, but to self-worth and authentic relationships. Sometimes the home you build isn't just made of walls and a roof, but of the boundaries you set to protect your peace and the chosen family who truly celebrates your joy. I had learned that lesson the hard way, but I wouldn't trade the wisdom it had brought me, or the stronger, more genuine connections that were growing from the ashes of old patterns. In protecting my house, I had found my home not just in this physical space, but in myself. And that was worth celebrating, every single day. So what about you? Have you ever had a family member hijack your special moment? How did you handle it? Drop a comment below to share your experience, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if this story resonated with you. Remember, setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's self-care. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and I hope my story helps you find the courage to protect your own special moments. Until next time, this is Amber Mitchell, signing off from the house that taught me to stand up for myself.